Hey there everyone, time for another iOS app review. Now I'm doing this a bit differently. Instead of doing the different shot format, I figured just focus on the iOS device itself and give you guys a tour as we go. Now this time a new app from Apple came out this month that I, of course, as a podcaster had to take a look at, and that is the official podcast app. Apple has announced that in iOS 6 they will remove the ability for a podcast to actually be downloaded through the iTunes app, and they are isolating it to the separate podcast app. Now, I have a lot of concerns about that, but I'll save them for a different place, a different time, a different podcast. In fact, even though this isn't a podcast, it's a video blog, but still, you know what I mean. So, the features of the podcast app, it does have a top stations feature. As it is set up, it's got all these different areas for arts, business, and everything like that, and I've got to wait for it to load up. One of my complaints about this app, actually, while I'm thinking about it, is that it tends to load slowly, and that's an unfortunate thing. It is buggy. Now, there are a few bugs that have been fixed in a patch, but you still have sometimes where it gets a bit screwy, but I can still show you that there are dials at the top. Apple again has gone with the make everything look like it's still physical design that they tend to do with their apps, which some people like and some people despise. But either way, it doesn't really matter too much to me as long as it works. Now, you can dial like arts, business, and then the subcategories down there. So it pretty much gives you a catalog, even down here, for podcast, so you can download them directly to this app. The interface for playing things is pretty neat. Let me find a audio podcast here that I've got. Okay, I've got this one. The Michael McDonald Nerdist.
Welcome to the Nerd.
And let me turn this all the way down, that way you won't hear any of it. Now, Apple has done an interesting thing with the first album art like this, and then you flick it up and you find a tape reel. That's right, an actual tape reel. They even go to the detail that as it's getting closer to the end of the podcast, this tape goes over to this reel, and the way that they spin in different speeds to keep it going in analog world actually works on here. So they took great pains in making that analog design like Apple's known for. The go faster and go slower knob is in the way that an old machine of this type would have played it, and sometimes it gets a bit unresponsive on you. There we go. I like how they've added a 10-second back and 30-second forward button. And actually, that's not just confined to audio podcast. If I go back to the library and go to, let's find something ironic here, like, say, an Apple keynote that I still have not listened to. Hey, I'm behind. It will be a 30-second behind skipper to where you can go back 30 seconds. So they've thought of everything in this. There's just one complaint, and one complaint alone that I have. Well, first of all, the bugginess, so that makes it 2 complaints. But the main complaint is that this does not sync up with iTunes. What do I mean by that? Well, it will find the podcast episodes that are on your iOS device, like this iPad here, and put them up for consideration for you to play. The problem is that it has its own isolated library. The thing will not, if you play a podcast in here, and then as I do, as old-fashioned as you guys are going to call me, actually sync this manually with the wire to my iTunes, it will not acknowledge that something has been played on here. And I find that a big hassle when it comes to organization. The main reason I'm not using this app to play my podcast right now is simply the fact that it does not sync over. So I would have to manually go into iTunes and actually say, yeah, I've listened to that one, that one, that one, because this app ain't doing it for me. Now, I hope whenever they actually integrate this into iOS 6, it will be a different story. But for now, if you do download your podcasts manually through the iTunes on the desktop and then sync them to your iOS device, that is something you need to be aware of. So you may want to keep on using the music and video apps that are built in if you want the ability for it to just automatically and manually do that for you. All in all, it's a good start for an app. Would I download it? If you're a podcast lover, yeah, download it. They're already pushing bug fixes out to fix a few things, but my main complaint is that inability to sync. But otherwise, it's a great app. Apple knows what they're doing, and they've made a good podcasting app, and I hope that it brings more awareness of people to podcasting. It could help podcasters out like me a great deal. So, all in all, this has been the podcasting app. Now, if you want to follow all of my other stuff, you can find me at about.me/labtech7. If you want to follow me and find out what apps I'm downloading, find me at Crosswalk. And if you want this app, you can take a look at where this video will be posted at tscn.tv, and it will be sitting there for you for a handy link, because sometimes the App Store is hard to navigate. So, until next time when I cover another app for the iOS system, see you guys.